They put one of the sons in as king of Iraq because the French had kicked him out of Syria. His name was Faisal. He was later killed by Saddam Hussein's predecessors in the 50s. His whole family was wiped out. He was king of Iraq, and his name was Faisal. And he's the one in Lawrence of Arabia. How many have seen the movie? He's Faisal that you see in the movie. They made him king of Iraq, ultimately. And then they took the other, his brother Abdullah, and made him king of Jordan. But in doing that, they created the Palestine problem. Because in the mandate for Palestine, from land from the Mediterranean to the Iraq borders, there was enough territory to solve the Arab-Jewish problem. There was enough territory, but they took 2/3, almost 3/4 away and gave it to another family who's been quiet ever since because they know that they were the biggest profiteers of the First World War, and put the whole Arab-Israeli or Arab-Jewish problem onto what we now call the West Bank or the west side of the Jordan River. So how are you going to satisfy the national aspirations of two peoples in that little territory? You were never going to be able to do it. And so you got them killing each other ever since. But the point was that if you wanted to make a deal or if you wanted to settle the problem, you had a huge territory to do it in. You know, how you worked it out isn't my issue. But the point is that, you know, there's not room for 3 states between the Iraq border and the Mediterranean Sea. Yet that's what we've come down to, 3 states. You know, there was only room really for 2, an Arab and a Jewish state. What you wanted to call the Arab state was up to you and up to the Palestinians and up to whoever was involved in it. But the British created all that, and the British created the Iraq problem too. And, you know, America goes in and picks up the pieces, but, you know, we're not good at picking up pieces. You know, we had to pick up the pieces for the French in Vietnam. Look at the mess we made out of that one. So we're not good at picking up pieces for anybody. And unfortunately, you know, this is what we're still doing, and we don't have a clue how to get through this mess. And we probably won't get through this mess very, very, very well. Anyway, so, you know, what you hear about the Zionism, Israelis, Jews, you know, none of this ever had to happen. None of this ever had to happen if there was anything rational in the process, and if people didn't do things that were, you know, politically oriented and inappropriate for what they had been granted. They were granted the mandate for Palestine. They were never granted the mandate to carve Palestine up as they saw fit. And the Balfour Declaration was, and we'll talk about the Balfour Declaration, was attached to the mandate for Palestine. Okay, so I don't want to go into the history any more than that. I give you a bit of the history. As you see, we're still in a total mess. But let's go back here. Kalischer then was instrumental in encouraging Jewish agricultural enterprise and actually set up a school. So when Herzl went to Palestine with the Kaiser, because Herzl was German background after all, coming from Austria, it wasn't totally a German state, it was an Austro-Hungarian Empire, but still it was German speaking, and met the Kaiser. He stood outside this agricultural school when the Kaiser went by and greeted him, tipped his hat, and the Kaiser tipped his hat to Herzl, and that's where Herzl was standing. That's symbolic. Herzl was standing outside this agricultural school, which had been encouraged by this Kalischer chap, who no one's ever heard of. So that's why I take him first. It says he was aware of the growing misery of the Jews of Eastern Europe, and a lot of people respected his Talmudic learning, as he says here. We had this situation in Palestine, and this is very important for if you want to understand what the situation that developed there. We had, this is fun. This is actually today. I think maybe you'll learn a bit, or maybe you won't. I don't know. It's a pretty superficial sketch, but it might get you more interested in it going further. We had what were called Tzadikah Jews. Does anyone know what a Tzadikah Jew is or might be?
Have anything to do with study?
By the way, you want to put a date on that? That's around. What did you say?
Does it have anything to do with the Sadiq?
No, really not. Except that the root is, as you say, ZDK, which is righteousness. Sadaqah means to be justified. It's a verbal noun from fourth form causative verb, since you're doing some other languages, you guys. Semitic languages, fourth form causative verb, and it means to make righteous or something. So with the fall of the temple, charity was considered the way to make you righteous or to show that you were a pious person. Charity was called in Hebrew tzedakah. You gave charity, you gave contributions. So tzedakah Jews were Jews who lived on these contributions that were collected all over the Jewish world in synagogues and other places. That's why Jews are so instrumental in giving money to politicians and every other cause. Everyone goes to the Jews and basically, I don't say shakes them down, but knows there's money there that they're willing to give, where a lot of people aren't really interested in giving money to anything. But they always, politicians and others know there's always money there. And my daughter works for a charitable organization in New York at the moment, Jewish charitable organization that was set up at this time to help these kinds of refugees. It was called the American Jewish Joint Distribution Committee to distribute this charity. And she said, Dad, you wouldn't believe how charitable people are. The amounts of money that they give to our organization it even like boggles my mind. You just can't imagine, what people give. Not for Israel. It's not for Israel. This is to rescue Jewish communities in India or in Ethiopia or in Russia or in the Balkans or old folks' homes in China. There are Jews in China who have no support. They have old folks' homes in China, and things like that. Just to mention, she said you just wouldn't believe it. And it is surprising because I'm not a big giver to charity, so I don't feel like I have enough to contribute. But there are a lot of people who do this, and they're taught. You see, this goes back for 2,000 years. Part of what the Romans, and there was a big thing about Nero the other night on History Channel. Well, part of what the Romans were involved in, they wanted the Jewish charitable contributions to the temple to go into the Roman treasury. That's one of the big things Nero was interested in, because they knew the Jews from all over the Mediterranean world were giving money to the temple, part of their expression of their Jewishness. But that's also would be an interesting thing to trace down, the Roman attitude toward